of the money and industrial power in the Western world. We're also talking about Rupert Murdoch's chief executive, so a lot of media influence too. So anyway, I was very impressed with these lists, so I published them on the internet. Just straight copy them and paste them from the Reuters article database. Now, they weren't available anywhere else, just on this little secret private database. They weren't on the internet at the time. So I really started this thing, which is, let's get these Bilderberg conference lists of names and agendas and publish them. And that's how my Bilderberg.org website started. That was in 1996. At the time, I was also involved with filmmakers and amateur filmmakers. And you might be interested to know that we used to have meetings every 6 months around here, actually. I think it's, gosh, what's the name of the town? It's a little village around here somewhere, not far from Marlborough. No, tiny village, a place called the Lacket. It's a little old cottage. And it was there that we used to hold 6 monthly get-togethers of alternative filmmakers.
Purton?
No, I think it was Little something. I can't remember the name of the village. No, tiny village. I think it's down the A4 down that way, and then you turn left. Lockridge. There's the man. He's got it. It was in Lockridge. And we used to do these every 6 months. So this was alternative filmmakers from all over the country. Some are people who had worked in professional television, etc., and filmmaking, who decided that they couldn't make what they wanted to make within that profession, so they'd gone into it. And others were amateurs who found it difficult to get into television and filmmaking. So what we would do is the complete opposite of what you get in the mainstream media. Now, for those of you who've never worked in television or radio, you get a horrible kind of smarminess in these organisations. They will say to you, "Oh, wonderful, wonderful, darling, this is fantastic. I saw your latest program, absolutely terrific." And of course, they hated it, but they just say that to you in order to smarm you. There's lots and lots of this goes on in the mainstream media. Anybody that wants to get up the profession knows that they just have to be nice to everybody around them, no matter what they really think of them, and they'll do very well. So we do the complete opposite, which is we would show our films in pre-production and slag them off. Say, that's rubbish, that doesn't work. Yeah? So it was a completely different approach to filmmaking. A lot of those people are now got into. One of the guys, for example, is the official who does undercover investigations for Sky News and things like that. So a lot of these people have gone places. Anyway, now getting a bit closer up to the present day, I'm involved in the Journalists' Union, as I said. I'm on the Ethics Council of the National Union of Journalists. That is, we meet about 4 times a year and we discuss journalism ethics. We draw up all sorts of codes of conduct, this sort of thing, in order to at least try and mitigate against some of the worst excesses of the commercial media bosses. And one of the things we've just finished, has just been published, and it's on the NUJ website now, is a guide to reporting terrorism, for example. What's happening is a lot of very young reporters, people straight out of college and university, are being sent to report on these massively complex, intricate and secretive terrorist arrests and terrorist cases. And so what we've got is a good basic guide to what are the sort of questions that you should ask, what are the kind of, and how do the police pull the wool over your eyes in these situations, etc. So that's as part of the Ethics Council. I'm also on something called the New Media Council, which is looking at the way that journalism is going, obviously much more towards the internet, multimedia. And I now do a programme on Bristol Community Radio, which is a 2-hour programme, live programme every Friday evening, where the first hour we look at reviewing all of the week's news, that is, anything that we think is interesting from that previous week. And then the second hour we go a bit more in-depth into a particular subject. For example, on Friday evening this week, we had a load of reports from a group called Iraq Veterans Against the War. So this is a US ex-servicemen, and some of the people in this organisation are serving servicemen still, many are, who are speaking out about the kinds of things that they saw in Iraq and the things that they were asked to do and told to do. There's one guy called Jimmy Massey, who was an ex-staff sergeant in the US Marine Corps who helped found the organisation. His basic line is, "This is World War III. after September the 11th, all the rules went out of the window. But this is what he has been told in his intelligence briefings in the Marine Corps. And that the US has a quest for global domination. Now, it's interesting, I think, to hear people with these points of view. He's only been heard, it's not been heard, as far as I know, anywhere in the Western NATO zone media. He's only been on Venezuelan television talking about this, because it's one of the only places, this is Telesur, which is a Venezuelan state TV network. One of the only places in the world where he can actually go on TV and talk about this stuff, because it's far too controversial. So that's the programme I do on Bristol Community Radio. On the subject of the Illuminati, I think we've got some serious problems in even talking about it, because many people like to have a convenient tag to put onto anything they see as evil, conspiratorial, or even unfortunate. Say, for example, this earthquake in Haiti. You go onto the internet, you'll find countless people who are saying, the Illuminatis control an earthquake. They put an earthquake bomb. A lot of things, that natural disasters, are attributed, like the tsunami several years ago, Boxing Day tsunami. Immediately people are saying, this is the Illuminati. Now, we've got a real problem when you've got an organisation like the Illuminati, because people want to blame everything on them. They want to demonise them. And that actually works, if this is a real organisation, which I believe it is, this works in their favour. Because they can easily say, how silly. How silly this is. People are saying that we did a tsunami and they said that we've caused this earthquake. How ridiculous. Easy to ridicule people. So what I'm going to try and do today is to pull together, what I think anyway, are some of the evidence, important evidence and facts about who these people are and why they love it when everybody blames them for everything, because it actually does work in their favour. First of all, my Collins Dictionary has the Illuminati in it. First of all, that's a fairly good bit of evidence that such an organisation exists. I don't know how many of you have ever looked up the Illuminati in the dictionary. And so there they are. An organisation founded in 1776 in Bavaria by Adam Weishaupt is what it says. And it also says something quite interesting. The organisation says the illuminating power of Christ resides within it alone. That's the actual, to quote the Collins Dictionary. So have a look at that for yourself. When you get back home, open your dictionaries up, see which have got something about the Illuminati and which haven't. Now, I can also tell you, if you go into encyclopedias, you will also find a similar thing. But it would be great if you had every edition over the last hundreds of years of the Encyclopaedia Britannica, because you could then see what's been taken out of the old editions and is not in the modern editions, because this very often happens. I found this when I was researching enclosure at Oxford, was that a lot of the language and terminology to do with land privatisation, which really started with the Statute of Merton, which is, we're talking about almost back to medieval times, is that a lot of the terminology and a lot of the information about what really happened in the history of this country, particularly to do with disenfranchising people from the land, has been airbrushed from history. Another example, I would say, of a modern-day manifestation of the Illuminati is this thing called anarcho-capitalism. Now, we very often, or very rarely, hear those two words together, do we? How many people have ever heard someone talk about anarcho-capitalism? It's a form of capitalism where the rules are out of the window. Now, this is something when I look around me and I comment on the news on our programme, I see this all the time, where money is king and no regulation of the way that people are. For example, in the banking sector, one of the things that's happened over the last 20 years is all the regulations that have kept the banks in order have slowly been pulled out, dismantled, destroyed. And so what we have is something what I would call is regulatory capture. So these organisations have become so powerful that they now control and ultimately own the systems which are designed to regulate them. Now, a perfect example of that is the FSA. The Financial Services Authority in this country is paid for by the banks. Yes, it's paid for by the banks. Now, I'm not absolutely sure